11:30 GMT, The Conversation with Kim Chakanetsa. Two historians who are unearthing the stories of ordinary women of the past and carving out a place in the history books for them. They'll discuss why popular history is still all about great men and why it's important to them to give unknown women a voice. This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
10 a.m. in London, 5 a.m. in Washington, 1 p.m. in Nairobi. This is Dan Damon at the BBC. The UK government's declared the coronavirus a serious and imminent threat to public health. Businesses in China are trying to get back to normal, but a lot of people are working from home. The Korean language film Parasite, about class and snobbery in South Korea, has broken convention to become the first non-English language film to win the Best Movie Oscar.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
Will Pete Buttigieg repeat his Iowa success in tomorrow's New Hampshire primary?
I just think it would be a whole new, fresh perspective in Washington, which we need desperately.
And an alarming report about torture in Nigeria. Those stories to come after the news.
BBC News. Hello, I'm Joey Smith. The South Korean film Parasite has been named Best Picture at the Oscars, the first non-English language movie to take the top prize in the 92-year history of the Academy Awards. Several television channels in South Korea interrupted their programs to report on the surprise win. Sophie Lawton was at the Oscars.
A night that seemed to be lacking in any surprises ended in a rather large one.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
The South Korean thriller became the first film not in the English language to take the top prize at the Oscars. Earlier, its director, Bong Joon-ho, beat, among others, Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino to be named Best Director.
좀 전에 그 국제영화상 수상하고 이제 오늘 할 일은 끝났구나 하고 이제 릴렉스하고 있었는데.
After winning Best International Feature, I thought I was done for the day and was ready to relax.
He left for the after parties clutching no fewer than 4 gold statuettes.
South Korea's President Moon Jae-in said Parasite was a uniquely Korean story that had moved the hearts of people around the world. The leader of Germany's main governing party, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, has said she won't put herself forward to replace Angela Merkel when the Chancellor eventually steps down. She'd once been the favourite to succeed Mrs. Merkel. From Berlin, Jenny Hill reports.
Just as the world was familiarising itself with her name, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer has announced she'll no longer pursue her ambition to become Germany's next Chancellor. Angela Merkel handed over the leadership of the CDU party to her in 2018. But after a series of public blunders, the woman known as AKK finally fell over her inability to control party members in the former East. In the state of Thuringia, regional politicians had aligned themselves with the far-right party AFD to oust the existing left-wing state prime minister. Ms. Kramp-Karrenbauer said that parts of the CDU held an ambiguous position towards the far right and the left.
China has recorded its highest number of deaths in a single day from the new coronavirus, with 97 people dying from the illness on Sunday. The virus has now killed more than 900 people. Australia's biggest city, Sydney, has recorded its highest amount of rainfall in 30 years. It's brought widespread flooding, but has also put out several bushfires. From Sydney, Sharma Khalil reports.
Australia's most populous city has been thrashed by the heaviest rainfall in decades. About 100,000 homes are without power. Despite the massive destructions, the downpours have also extinguished more than 30 bushfires over the weekend. The latest to be contained is the Gospers Mountain fire northwest of Sydney. Since October, it has burned more than 500,000 hectares.
World news coming to you from the BBC. The European Space Agency has launched its Solar Orbiter probe designed to study the Sun from close quarters. The mission, blasted off from Cape Canaveral in Florida, is due to last for 9 years. The $1.3 billion craft is packed with cameras and sensors to provide insights into the Sun's atmosphere, its winds and magnetic fields. There's a large titanium shield to protect equipment from the intense heat. The left-wing Nationalist Party Sinn Féin has described Ireland's general election as a big statement of change, after it made strong gains in the results declared so far. Sinn Féin has secured more votes than either of the centrist parties, Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil, which have led Irish governments for decades. They've said they won't form a coalition government with Sinn Féin because of its past links with the paramilitary IRA. But Rory O'Murchu of Sinn Féin, who won the seat vacated by the party's former president Gerry Adams, says there has to be compromise.
We will all need to have conversations. Nobody can sit on a pedestal somewhere and not talk to anybody. But it will be very difficult for us to get a programme of government that will be acceptable to the people and also to our support base. But we have to try and find it.
The Election Commission in Azerbaijan says preliminary results show the party of long-term President Ilham Aliyev has strengthened its majority in snap parliamentary elections. One opposition politician was elected. The other parties who've made it through are all seen as pro-government. Opponents accuse the president of trying to consolidate his grip on power. Security forces in Sri Lanka have arrested 21 people for allegedly searching for gold thought to have been buried by Tamil Tiger rebels in their former strongholds. 2 soldiers were among those arrested. The military defeated the Tamil Tigers in 2009. BBC News.
Hello, this is Dan Damon with World Update from the BBC. Thanks for being with us. Coming up later on our programme, elections in the Republic of Ireland seem likely to change politics across the island. The radical Republican Sinn Féin now has big support both north and south of the border. More on that coming soon. First, one of the greatest upsets in Oscars history took place last night in Los Angeles. A film with subtitles, not in English, won Best Picture. Parasite, directed by South Korean Bong Joon-ho, is a satire on class and culture.
내가 소독해? 신문 받아.
나도 봐. 공짜로 집안에 소독도 하고.
About the difference between different parts of society in South Korea. Well, after 92 years of Oscars awards, it's really surprising, perhaps, that a Korean rather than a French or Italian director broke the convention that only films in English can win the main award. And Parasite walked away with 4 Oscars, including Best Director and Best Original Screenplay. Will Gompertz reports.
And the Oscar goes to...
It was a good night for...
Parasite.
A South Korean film about social inequality in Seoul, which became the first film not in the English language to win the prestigious Best Picture Oscar, to the delight of its producers.
We never imagined this to ever happen. We are so happy. I feel like a very opportune moment in history is happening right now.
His director and creator, Bong Joon-ho, became the first South Korean to win the Best Original Screenplay and the first South Korean to win Best Director.
Thank you so much. When I was young and studying cinema, there was a saying that I carved deep into my heart, which is the most personal is the most creative.
그 말은 top quotes from our great Martin Scorsese. So
that was a standing ovation. He then announced his plans for the rest of the evening.
I will drink until next morning. Thank you.
Parasite also won Best Foreign Film. It was the story of a night that was otherwise largely predictable.
All dressed up in your suit and your tie, trying to get away.
Janelle Monáe opened the show with a couple of numbers and a comment on diversity.
We celebrate all the amazing talent in this room. We celebrate all the women who directed phenomenal films. And I'm so proud to stand here as a black, queer artist telling stories.
Comedian Chris Rock followed her lead.
Yes. Cynthia is here tonight. Cynthia did such a great job in Harriet hiding black people that the Academy got her to hide all the black nominees.
And so, with the elephants in the room banished, for this year at least, the real business of dishing out golden statues got underway, with the acting categories allocated as expected. Renée Zellweger won Best Actress for playing a vulnerable Judy Garland in Judy. Joaquin Phoenix picked up the Best Actor Oscar for his intense and dark performance in Joker. He used his acceptance speech to thank colleagues for their patience.
I've been a scoundrel in my life. I've been selfish. I've been cruel at times, hard to work with, and ungrateful. But so many of you in this room have given me a second chance. When he was 17, my brother wrote this lyric. He said, "Run to the rescue with love, and peace will follow." Thank you.
He wasn't the only one showing his emotions. Brad Pitt's voice quivered as he accepted his first acting Oscar for his supporting role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I'm a big gobsmacked. I'm not one to look back, but this has made me do so, and I think of my folks taking me to the drive-in to see Butch and Sundance, and loading up my car and moving out here, and Gina and Ridley giving me my first shot, to all the wonderful people I've met along the way, to stand here now. Once upon a time in Hollywood, and keep that the truth.
Best Actress in a supporting role was also a first-time winner. Laura Dern won for playing a hard-nosed divorce lawyer in Marriage Story.
And you know, some say you never meet your heroes. But I say if you're really blessed, you get them as your parents.
It wasn't one of those The British Are Coming Academy Awards, but there were some notable successes nevertheless. Elton John and Bernie Taupin won the original song Oscar for I'm Gonna Love Me Again from Rocketman. Jacqueline Duran won for her costume design on Little Women, and Roger Deakins, the veteran cinematographer, was awarded his second Oscar for Sam Mendes' First World War drama, 1917. But the night belonged to Parasite and its popular, self-effacing director, Bong Joon-ho.
Thank you, Academy. Thank you.
Will Goffert's reporting, and yes, it's Parasite that really is the talk of the town about the inequality in the South Korean capital, Seoul. Here are some South Koreans at Seoul railway station talking about a proud day.
This kind of thing is a huge national celebration. I want to thank director Bong Joon-ho and all the actors and actresses. This is wonderful.
The movie is about struggles in everyday life. I think there are a lot of things to make a movie about from our local communities and in our country. I hope many movies like Parasite will be made from now on.
There are so many other famous films from other countries, maybe from Europe or elsewhere. I feel proud as a South Korean, knowing a South Korean film won Best Picture out of all of those films. It is a great feeling.
Just some of the voices in Seoul in South Korea. I've been speaking to a man who did his PhD, his doctorate on the director Bong Joon-ho. He is Jason Besheves.
It's extraordinary to go from 0 nominations in 90 years and then to be nominated for multiple awards and then to win 4 awards, including Best Director for Bong Joon-ho and Best Picture, making history yet again. It's a truly historic moment. You know, Bong Joon-ho's films invariably come at seminal points for the Korean film industry. Barking Dogs Never Bite was released in 2000 when directors and producers were given more creative control, and then in 2003, Memories of Murder was released the same year as some great Korean films, Park Chan-wook's Old Boy, Jang Ji-won's Save the Green Planet, Im Sang-soo's A Good Lawyer's Wife. Then you have Snowpiercer and Okja, which were very, very important and successful projects that attracted, you know, an overseas audience because they're both predominantly in English, but also a bit of Korean as well. And so that really kind of gave Bong Joon-ho a bigger profile in the US. And the stage was set really for Bong Joon-ho to make history, because there were those, including myself, who were really hungry for him to go back to making Korean language films, and the timing was perfect.
So the list that you've just given us illustrates that there are so many very good Korean films. Why have they not been recognized by the Academy in the past?
I think partly because the Academy membership suddenly diversified somewhat. It's still got a long way to go, and I think that has helped certainly Parasite's case. And I think Korean films are the ones that tend do very well overseas, you know, body tours, you know, Lee Chang-dong's films, Park Chan-wook, Bong Joon-ho. They're quite dark films. Generally, they're not films that, you know, the Academy would normally go for. And I think as the Academy membership has expanded to include those from different countries and from different ethnicities, I think it's enabled a film like Parasite to really get acknowledged.
So what about, sorry to interrupt you, so what about the story it tells, which is about the class nature of South Korean society? You know, families don't want their daughters to marry a man who doesn't have a university degree, that kind of thing. And you definitely can come from the wrong side of the tracks, can't you, in South Korea? Is the film going to make a difference to that culture?
Well, I mean, Korea, the culture here is incredibly vibrant, and, you know, it has problems like anywhere else. And I think the Parasite Ring comes at a time where there's just great interest in Korean culture as a whole. You know, K-pop, K-drama. And I think it mirrors, in some respects, success that the UK has had. You know, it's a small country, doesn't have a huge population, but there's a lot of people, there's a lot of talented people working in the arts. And I think it's kind of replicated to some extent the success of the UK soft power. And I think Parasite is an example of how vibrant the film industry is and how healthy it is. It still has issues going forward. The film industry is largely controlled by these big studios. It's hard for younger filmmakers to get the creative freedom that their predecessors had. And you know, the big challenge for the industry is where does it go from here? It has been for a long time heavily reliant on these auteurs, Kim Ji-yoon, Park Chan-wook, Bong Joon-ho, of course. Yeah, the key is to try and nurture new talent. But it's not just directors, of course. You know, you have editors, production designers. There's a huge pool of talent in Korea. And I think we're going to see a lot of these talented professionals go into work in Hollywood, which is already happening.
That's Jason Besheves, who's a professor in Korean cinema in University in Seoul. You're listening to World Update from the BBC. Following the bushfire crisis in Australia, an inquiry is to examine the impact of climate change on the nation's ability to prevent and respond to natural disasters. Prime Minister Scott Morrison is finalising the terms of a royal commission into the wildfires, even though he's been accused of underplaying the role of global warming. Phil Mercer sends us this report from Sydney.
This is the Black Summer of 2019-20.
Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, says Australia must learn the lessons from the bushfire emergency. More than 30 people have been killed in the disaster that began in September, and 3,000 homes have been destroyed. Mr. Morrison says a royal commission, Australia's highest form of inquiry, will examine the impact of global warming on the fires, as well as other factors, including land management.
These fires have been fuelled by one of the worst droughts on record, changing in our climate and a build-up in fuel amongst other factors. Our summers are getting longer, drier and hotter. That's what climate change does.
The Prime Minister has, however, been accused of ignoring the perils of climate change. Australia is one of the world's largest emitters per capita of greenhouse gases. Coal dominates electricity production and earns billions of dollars in exports. Within the ranks of the centre-right coalition government, there are MPs who dispute climate science. But Greg Mullins, an environmental campaigner and former New South Wales fire chief, commends the Prime Minister for allowing the Bushfire Royal Commission to examine global warming.
It's really encouraging to hear the Prime Minister saying this. It's encouraging to see the coalition shifting, apart from a few people who still question fact.
Precise details of the Royal Commission are expected to be released in the coming days.
Phil Mercer reporting from Sydney. This is World Update from London. And coming up later on our programme, the European Space Agency has launched a probe headed towards the Sun. We'll hear from one of the scientists at that launch.
It was